What is going on, football fans? The NFL season starts in just one day. That's right, the Kansas City Chiefs will be playing tomorrow to open up the season against the Houston Texans. And I'm going to be doing this each and every week. I'll be premiering the video. It seems like you guys like to be interactive for videos like this, whether it's the Pick'em video, whether it's the Power Rankings. And I want to say thank you to all you guys for being the best supporters on YouTube. I'll always be live in these chats. Hopefully have some fun. You guys could disagree, agree with my opinion, whatever. It's all for fun. And I also want to say tonight I will be live to talk New York Giants football for doing, one of my normal Q&As. But I wanted to jump into my power rankings. I wanted to talk about all 32 teams in the NFL and do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, one thing I want to say, a lot of these teams that I have ranked, at the bottom, a lot of them have question marks going into the year. That doesn't necessarily mean that those questions won't be answered in a positive way, and they could easily creep up this list. But this is going into the year. This is with the uncertainty of how these teams are going to perform. Obviously, the guys at the top, like the Saints, the 49ers, the Ravens, they have established teams. They don't have a lot of question marks going into the year. They don't have new head coaches, things of that nature. Now, new isn't always bad. You can definitely surprise, and hopefully some of these teams at the bottom definitely do that. I tried to be as unbiased as I possibly could. Of course, you guys know I'm a major New York Giant fan, but we're going to jump right into the list right now. At number 32 on the Entertainah's Power Rankings, entering Week 1. It's simple, guys. The worst team in football as far as I'm concerned going into the year, that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are number 32 on my list. Listen, Gardner Minshew had a really nice rookie season last year. Make no mistakes about it. He's definitely got a guy with some talent, but to me, this is a team that is clearly tanking. They trade away Jalen Ramsey mid-season. They trade away Yannick Ngakoue. They're accumulating draft assets. If they don't finish with the first pick, they'll have enough capital if they see fit to move up and get a guy like Trevor Lawrence as the quarterback if a team is willing to trade down. To me, the Jaguars are trying to get that future franchise quarterback. I don't think they believe in Gardner Minshew, and I don't think they're a very good football team. I just don't see it. They cut Leonard Fournette. They have no talent. Yes, DJ Shark is a nice weapon. He'll definitely make some catches. Minshew may do decently, but if you look at Minshew last year, a lot of his stats were in garbage time from trying to catch up against the opponent. So I don't believe in Jacksonville. I think they are far and away the worst team in the NFL this year. Next up, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals at number 31. And the Bengals, it was neck and neck between them and the Panthers for 31-30. There's a spoiler. I got the Panthers at 30. But the Bengals, to me, they could definitely be one of those teams that really moves up my power rankings as it goes along. I recognize they're a team with a lot of young players and a lot of young talent, kind of like the Giants. But we'll see if they're ready. You got a new, they just have new everything. The defense to me is still a major question mark. I definitely have faith in Joe Mixon. Looks like they gave him a healthy extension, so I think he'll be starting the year. A.J. Green is a veteran, but they have other good wide receivers like Boyd. And obviously, as I mentioned, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, the rookie wide receiver. And the big question mark there, and the guy that most people are obviously excited about, is the quarterback. The number 1 overall pick, Joe Mixon. But like most rookie quarterbacks, I think he will struggle early. But maybe the Bengals come on late. They win 6-7 games if things start to click. But going into the year, I can't have them much higher than 30 or 31. Number 30, I've got the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have a rookie head coach in their own right. There's unfamiliarity there. A coach that a lot of New York Giants fans wanted to bring in with Matt Rule. Really exciting coach. Definitely a guy that, I think the players could get behind. But I don't like a lot of the moves they made this offseason. They definitely have a lot of talent in terms of the skill positions on that football team. I still think the offensive line's a question mark, but McCaffrey, obviously the 3 wide receivers that they have there are all very good. DJ Moore, Samuel, and now they add Robbie Anderson. So they've got talent at the skill positions. Teddy Bridgewater, to me, is a major question mark. I think the Carolina Panthers overpaid, but I do understand it. He's kind of a stopgap quarterback on a 3-year deal. You could probably get out after 2, and if you play really poorly this year, you could draft your future quarterback, and Bridgewater's only there for 1 year to help mentor that player. Bridgewater, to me, is a run-of-the-mill quarterback. He's a fringe starter. He played great with the Saints last year, but look at the Saints roster. They may have the most talented 53-man roster in football. We'll see. Maybe Bridgewater will prove me wrong. He definitely has a lot of weapons there. As far as the defense goes, they lose Luke Kuechly. There's a lot of major question marks there. Derek Brown should help, which was one of the league's worst run defenses last year in the middle, but I still have major question marks overall for this Carolina Panthers roster. I got them finishing 4th in the South. Next up, the Washington football team coming in at number 29. led by Dwayne Haskins. Of course, that defense is ferocious on the edge. Now that they brought in Chase Young with the number 2 overall pick, they've got 2 good emerging young edge rushers, and that is what they're going to build their team around. Montez Sweat, of course, last year, the first-round pick that a lot of New York Giants fans wanted at number 17. I think he had a decent year last year, 6, 7 sacks, whatever it was in his rookie year. Now you bring in Chase Young, who was a phenomenal college player at Ohio State. You got a dual threat on the edge. You got a good interior defense as well. The Redskins, to me, as a whole, probably near league average going into the year in defense, on defense. The offense, to me, is a major question mark. I don't see how they're going to be able to keep up with teams, and I don't think their defense is good enough yet to be a team that carries the football team to 8, 9, 10 wins. Haskins is going to have to step up if the Redskins are going to impress anybody this year, and I don't know if he's able to do it. We'll see. The supporting cast, I seriously question. Dwayne Haskins definitely has a strong arm. The raw attributes are there, but I don't know if the support system is there. The work ethic seems to be. He definitely dropped some weight. He looks to be in much better shape. You got Terry McLaurin, the connection there with Ohio State, who may be the most talented wide receiver in the NFC by year's end. But outside of him, who do you got? And the offensive line, to me, is a major question mark. Maybe Antonio Gandy-Golden comes on and impresses. We'll see. Gibson is an intriguing running back prospect now that he's going to get more of an opportunity, now that they cut Adrian Peterson. But I still got my doubts with that offense in Washington. Next up, you've got the New York Jets. And I probably would have the Jets a little bit higher on this list before they obviously made the trades that they made. And, and obviously C.J. Mosley opted out. But I do think that they're set up very nicely for the future. But because they lost the players that they did on defense, I just don't see them having that strong of a year. I think they're set up well for the future. They improved the offensive line. Becton is getting rave reviews. They brought in Fant on the right side, who a lot of people like. They improved the center position. Le'Veon Bell, to me, he's gone after this year. I think they'll cut him. They did draft Pirine in the 4th round. Could be an emerging running back. We'll have to wait and see. But overall, I think the Jets' offense could be a little better, but they still lack weaponry, and they have a ton of injuries right now at the wide receiver position. Jamison Crowder right now is your number 1 option. In my opinion, he wouldn't even be the 3rd option on the New York Giants. That is a major problem in the passing game at the wide receiver position. I think you helped out Darnold by improving that offensive line, which is what you should have done in year 2, but I still don't think the weapons are there for this offense to get going. The defense will have to carry that football team, and without their 2 best players from last year, even though Mosley didn't play last year, I have my doubts as to how good this New York Jets team could be. But maybe they'll prove me wrong. Big year this year for Sammy D. Next up, we've got the Miami Dolphins at number 27, and a lot of people are jumping aboard Miami. I'm seeing their numbers spike. I think they were projected to win 5.5 wins when Vegas came out with the initial lines. Now they're 6.5. People are going goo goo gaga over these free agent acquisitions. They like Tua Tagovailoa. Tua's not going to start the year. We'll see what Fitzpatrick's got in his 2nd year. But I am not buying into Miami's hype. Last year, I thought Flores did a phenomenal job. Definitely exceeded expectations. Going into the year, if I could have ranked them 33rd in the year, 33rd in the league, I would have. They were the 32nd best team on paper in terms of talent last year, and they improved that talent tremendously. But they're still not that good on paper for me until such time I see Tua, and maybe he could be one of those quarterbacks that carries the team. Miami is definitely headed down the right path, but I still think they're a year away from being a true contender. I think people are jumping on the train a year too early. I still think 5, maybe 6 wins, but the job that Flores did last year, he exceeded expectations. Maybe he could exceed them again. Maybe they get to 8. Maybe they get to 9. I'm not buying into the Miami hype. I've got them at 27. Next up, the New York Giants. And a lot of New York Giants fans probably want to see me have them at 20, 18, 21. There's some Giants fans who probably think we're number 1 going into the year. Listen, guys, this is still a young team. We've still got a lot of question marks going into a season in which we didn't have a normal offseason to get acclimated to the new systems. I do think this Giants team has talent. I think they're emerging. I think they're going to be better, but they play a very challenging schedule. This list isn't based on schedule, though. It's based on how I think the teams stack up going into the year. This is one of those teams that if some of the things are answered in the right direction, could definitely move up my power rankings. We'll see how they do week 1 against a very challenging Steelers team. But the offensive line should be improved. It may take a few weeks, though. They're going up against some great pass rushers. Saquon Barkley is healthy. Last year, he was hurt, or at least not himself for at least half the season. Darius Slayton should be more improved. Golden Tate is not suspended as of now, and from what I heard, he practiced today. So Golden Tate should be good to go. Hopefully, Shepard and Ingram can stay healthy. If they can, the New York Giants may have one of the top 10 to 12 most talented offenses in football if this offensive line could perform at league average. But that's a major question mark. But the biggest question mark for this team is on the defensive side of the football, not just with the personnel, but with the defensive coordinator. I like Patrick Graham. He seems like he has a good cohesion with our head coach, Joe Judge. And, of course, Judge is a major question mark as well. I do like what I've seen so far, but we'll wait to see, when they're on the football field. Graham last year, he got stripped of his play calling duties by Flores mid-season. So we'll see what he's got. A guy that's been with the New York Giants before, he definitely has an exotic defense. They're going to send a lot of blitzes, and I think it's going to be a home run or a swing and miss when it comes to the New York Giants defense this year. I think you'll see more turnovers, but I also think we're going to be giving up more plays. The addition of Bradbury should help with the secondary. We'll have to wait and see. We've got a lot of young players with a lot of upside, and we're going to need them to hit that upside if we're going to creep up this power ranking. Number 25, I've got the LA Chargers, and last year they may have been, if not the most, one of the top 2 or 3 most disappointing teams in the NFL. Going into the year, the LA Chargers were a lot of people's Super Bowl pick. They were coming off a year, I think, where they won 11 or 12 games. They were very good. Last year, Rivers disappointed mightily. They moved on from Rivers. They've got a young quarterback with Justin Herbert from Oregon, who a lot of people like, but he's not going to start the year. And he's a rookie quarterback, so don't expect big things there. It's why I'm tempering my expectations for the Chargers. I think they'll win week 1, but I'm not high on the Chargers. They do have a good defense, and maybe it'll carry them to 8 or 9 wins. With Von Miller going down, that should hurt the Broncos. We'll see what the Raiders got, but I respect that Raiders offensive line. I've got them higher than the Chargers. Next up, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. I've got them neck and neck. So I'm not that high on the AFC West as a whole, but the Raiders, due to their offensive line, could definitely grind out some football games. They could definitely win more games than a lot of people are expecting. But again, I got to see it to believe it. Carr's definitely a solid quarterback. In the draft, I didn't necessarily agree with their philosophy. They went heavy wide receiver. The defense, I thought, could have used a lot more improvement than what they did. I would have went more defense than they did with the offense, but we'll have to wait and see. They definitely brought some speed with Henry Ruggs. Could be a very, very dangerous weapon there for the Raiders, along with Josh Jacobs in the backfield. And that offensive line, it's going to be a very similar strategy with the New York Giants. I think they're going to have to mask that defense with what should be a strong ground game with Josh Jacobs behind that very good offensive line of the Raiders. They could definitely move up this list, but right now I've got them at 24. Next up, the Chicago Bears coming in at 23. This is the Giants' Week 2 opponent. The Bears are a team I'm not sleeping on, but they got Trubisky at quarterback, guys. I mean, really. And they don't have a lot of weapons outside of Allen Robinson. Yes, Tariq Cohen's a nice option in the passing game. I'm not buying into their offense. I don't believe in Trubisky. For the Bears to be good this year, for the Bears to compete for the playoffs, Trubisky has to be an average quarterback. Can he do it? Sure. He did it 2 years ago. He needs to bounce back. They brought in a head coach who was supposed to be an offensive mind. They didn't look too good offensively last year. He'll have to prove the doubters wrong. And if he can, I do think this defense is good enough. I think they have a top 5 defense to carry this team to the playoffs. But it's going to come down to that offense being around league average. And if they can do that, they'll move up my power rankings. But going in, I still got my doubts on Mitch Trubisky. Next up, number 22, we've got the Arizona Cardinals. And they're the flavor of the month. Everybody loves the Arizona Cardinals. And a lot of these people are probably fantasy guys. They see DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, blah, 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 blah. The offensive line is trash. Kenyon Drake is a good running back. They've got some nice pieces. I still worry about that O-line. And the defense, to me, is not that improved. Yes, Isaiah Simmons is a very nice piece, but they still have one of the worst defenses in football. They ranked dead last year. I don't have high expectations for the Cardinals going into the year. Maybe they'll exceed them. Maybe they'll make the playoffs like a lot of people seem to think. I still got them middle of the road, 6, 7 wins. They play in a very challenging NFC West, but maybe Kyler Murray will emerge into being the Lamar Jackson of this year. And if he does that, well, the sky's the limit. You saw what Lamar Jackson did for that Ravens team last year. He won the MVP award, and if Murray can have that kind of impact, well, of course, they'll definitely move up my list, but I got to see it to believe it. The Ravens have a much better supporting cast, in my opinion, in terms of the offensive line than the Arizona Cardinals have, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we've got the Atlanta Falcons coming in at 21, and maybe some people have them a little higher, maybe some people have them a little lower. They have a very explosive offense. Make no mistake about it. Matt Ryan, a former MVP, they've got weapons all over that football team at the wide receiver position, at the running back position. Now that they brought in Gurley, they've got weapons. They lost Hooper, but they brought in a good tight end to replace him. So I think the Falcons are going to put up points. I think they're going to be one of the top 7, 8, 9 offenses in the league. But much like with the Cardinals, I question their defense. I think their defense is bad. And maybe they'll prove me wrong. But going into the year, I think they're going to have to win shootouts. They'll win some of them, but they're not going to win enough, in my opinion, to be a competitive football team. Next up, number 20, it's a team I've talked a lot about. It's a team that I think is a deep sleeper this year that a lot of people are sleeping on. and they may disappoint. They may make me look like a fool. They could easily win 4 games. They could fall flat on their face. They're a lot like the Atlanta Falcons. That's the Detroit Lions at number 20. Matthew Stafford last year I thought was a phenomenal quarterback. He was on pace to have arguably his greatest year of his career. They've got weapons all over that offense. He got hurt after 8 weeks. They were 3-4-1. They go 0-8 over the last 8 without Stafford. Stafford, of course, a major piece to that football team. So I think they kind of benefited in a way. They shouldn't have had the 3rd pick. They were much better on paper than the 3rd pick, but because Stafford went down, they got that 3rd pick. Similar to the 49ers the year before, where they were a much better team, but Garoppolo went down like week 3 or 4. They got Bosa. Well, they got Jeff Okudah. A lot of people think Jeff Okudah could be a top 4 or 5 cornerback in the NFL. Will it happen year 1? I don't know. It's hard to transition in at that position. But Okudah was good. Okudah was real good. The guy didn't commit a penalty his last season in college at Ohio State. So you got to respect Okudah. I think it was a really good pick. I think DeAndre Swift is an explosive running back. You had Kenny Golladay on the outside, Marvin Jones. You've got enough weapons for Stafford to operate. They bring in a couple of veterans on the defensive side of the football. The biggest question mark for me with this team, I think they're talented enough to be a playoff team. I really do. Matt Patricia is the biggest question mark. And it's a put up or shut up year. A lot of people thought he'd be fired last year. I think Stafford going down saved his job. But if the Lions do not put up this year, he's gone. Because in my opinion, they're at least an 8-win team on paper. But that doesn't mean they're going to be. But I got them at 20. Next up, we've got the Denver Broncos coming in at number 19. And I might have put them lower. Of course, Von Miller went down with the injury. I'm still going to give them a little respect going into the season. I don't think they're this good. But I think on paper, they're decent. I think they're going to be dropping down my rankings. I think they're going to be a disappointing team this year. I don't believe in that offensive line. They lost McGovern, one of the better centers in the league, to the Jets, I believe he went over to. They got a poor offensive line. They've got a ton of weapons. They had Jerry Jeudy. Drew Lock looked like a solid quarterback last year. But can he double it up? Yes, he went 4-1 with the Broncos. The defense, to me, without Miller, not that good. I don't believe in Denver. I think they're going to be falling, but I'll keep them at 19 for now. Next up at number 18. The LA Rams, and this is a team kind of in the middle for me. They made. I don't agree with the extension that they just made with Jalen Ramsey, but he's still one of the top 5, 6, 7 corners in the league. Aaron Donald is the best defensive player in the league. I don't care if he had a down year last year. So they've got 2 premium pieces on that defense. On the offense, I think Jared Goff's going to prove some doubters wrong this year. McVay, to me, is one of the best coaches in football. I think the Rams have an agenda this year to prove people wrong. The problem is they play in the NFC West with a lot of good competition, but I do think they're a good football team. I picked them to beat the Cowboys week 1. I think they'll be around an 8-win team due to the fact that they play in such a challenging division. But the Rams are not a team to sleep on, in my opinion. I think that they could be a decent squad this year. Next up, at number 17, the New York Giants' biggest rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a team that could exceed expectations. They always seem to be a team, when you count them out, they're feisty. They find ways to win. The Green Bay Packers game last year, for example, on Thursday Night Football. I thought they had no chance. They were going to that game playing horribly. The Packers were hitting on all cylinders, and the Eagles go in there and just manhandle them. So I'm not going to completely count them out going into the year, but they've got a lot of offensive linemen down. That is a big problem going into the year, especially when you have an injury-prone quarterback with Carson Wentz and his big toy that he got in the first round, Jalen Reagor. He's probably going to miss the first month of the season. So there's big question marks going into the year. A lot of people don't believe in Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey. They're veterans. They got good tight ends, obviously. Probably the best 2 tight end set in all of football with what they got over there. And the defense is pretty good. It's around top 10 in the league. But I'm not in love with Philadelphia this year. I think they're going to be middle of the pack. Next up, number 16, same story. Middle of the pack, 8-9 wins. I've got the Houston Texans. And a lot of people are very down on Bill O'Brien with some of the offseason moves he's made. But one thing I'll say about the Texans, they're a team you never want to count out. They always seem to sneak into the playoffs, win 9, 10 games. Deshaun Watson is obviously one of the 5 most talented quarterbacks in the league, if not 6 or 7. Very good quarterback, make no mistake about it. And him alone could carry that team to at least 6 or 7 wins. You got to respect him. Brandon Cooks is still a solid weapon. Fuller, when he's healthy, is one of the best weapons in football. The guy's just never healthy. He's certainly got weapons. Same can be said for David Johnson. He's got to remain healthy. They've got a lot of question marks in terms of health, but they do have talent on the offensive side of the football. And the defense, of course, still has playmakers. So I still got to respect Houston, but I don't think they're going anywhere fast in terms of going deep into the playoffs. Next up, at number 15, the Minnesota Vikings. And the Minnesota Vikings brought in Yannick Ngakoue. They've got a great pass rusher duo there. Kirk Cousins, a very underrated quarterback. They've got weapons at the wide receiver position. Of course, they lost Diggs. You still got Thielen. They drafted Justin Jefferson. They've got weapons, but they're a team that heavily emphasizes the run. They heavily emphasize the run, and I expect them to do that this year as well. I think they're going to ground, I think they're going to pound, and I think it'll set up efficient passing opportunities for Cousins. I do have them at 15. I could see them moving way up this list. They could definitely win the North, or I could see them disappointing. The biggest question mark for me, the Minnesota Vikings in their secondary, their oldest player is 23 years old. They're very inexperienced there with the veterans that they left, and they may get picked on. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, number 14, the Cleveland Browns. They were everybody's flavor of the month last year. They were the Arizona Cardinals of last year. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. They got all these pieces. David Njoku. Now, what they did to me was they improved where they needed to actually improve to win football games. They got Conklin on the right side. They got Wills in the draft. That offensive line should be much, much, much better. Much improved. And if Baker Mayfield doesn't get it done this year, it's time for Cleveland to look for another quarterback. I think Mayfield will. I think Mayfield will have a solid year. I'm not saying he's going to have a great year. I'm not saying he's going to have an MVP year, but I think he'll have a solid year. He'll keep them in playoff contention, but much like the NFC West, the AFC North is a very competitive division. The Browns are certainly a very talented team on paper. We'll see what they do with their rookie head coach. Next up, number 13, the New England Patriots, and I could have definitely had them lower. They lost a lot of talent on the defense. They lost Tom Brady. N'Keal Harry is like their number one option right now in the passing game. They've got a bunch of nobodies. But don't sleep on Bill Belichick. Don't sleep on the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick has made nobodies Hall of Famers throughout his career. You could go down the list. There's a ton of guys that have come in here that were scraps on other teams. They came in here and they were phenomenal. Belichick and that coaching staff find ways to get the most out of the players on their team, and I'm not going to doubt them. I've been watching this team for way too long to doubt Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. And maybe they'll win 5 games. Maybe they'll play to the back of their football card, but maybe they won't. You can't count this team out. To me, they're the toughest team to predict this year. On paper, I see a 5 or 6 win team, but because of Belichick, they could win 12. We don't know. Going into the year, it's going to be very interesting to see how Cam Newton translates with Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick and the type of system that they implement, because we all know the Patriots are like a chameleon on offense. They're always going to fit the team to the strength. And this year, you got a mobile quarterback who has a rocket for an arm. Expect a lot of deep ball throws, expect a lot of RPOs, and expect the tight end to be heavily involved. New England, don't sleep on them. Number 12, Indianapolis Colts. Definitely in contention to win that AFC South. Don't sleep on them as well. They get a quarterback in Phillip Rivers. In my opinion, his job on this team is simple. Be a game manager. Don't turn the ball over. You've got weapons. You've got a great offensive line. Pound the ball to Marlon Mack. Get it to your playmaker, Jonathan Taylor, in the backfield. Those running backs should be able to get the job done running behind that offensive line. And they've definitely got some good weapons to throw to in the passing game. T.Y. Hilton. Of course, they got Paris Campbell coming back. They've got some weapons in the passing game. I think the Colts are a sleeper to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC, but a lot of it is going to depend on that offensive line and whether or not Rivers still has something left in the tank. Number 11, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers last year were my Super Bowl pick out of the NFC going into the year. I love the offseason that they had, but they were a team that built through free agency, and they're a team that I don't like what they did in the draft this year. As a matter of fact, I didn't understand it. You got a win-now quarterback with Aaron Rodgers, who's only thrown 6 picks over his last 2 years combined. And for some reason, everybody seems to think a guy that's thrown 50 touchdowns and 6 picks over his last 2 years, and I'm not just talking about the Packers, I'm talking about fans in general, is no longer a top-tier quarterback. Trust me, Aaron Rodgers is still a top-tier quarterback. The question you have to ask yourself is, where's his weapons? Lazard's the number 2 wide receiver. They lost the guy that they brought in free agency. I can't remember his name off the top of my head from the Colts, I believe. He went down. It was either an injury or COVID. I can't remember. But regardless, their number 2 wide receiver is definitely a big option, a big question mark. Devontae Adams is still a strong number 1, but that ground game should be good. That ground game should be very good. They had a running back last year, had 16 touchdowns. Now they bring in A.J. Dillon, who's a big thumper. I think they're going to focus heavily on that ground game. I still think the defense will have a very good pass rush with Za'Darius and Preston Smith. I'm not counting on Green Bay to have a very good season again, but I certainly have a question mark as to whether or not they could repeat. I don't think they're winning 13, but I got them around 10. Next up, number 10, our week 1 opponent, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe a lot of people have them lower. They're not a flashy team. They don't have unbelievable weapons on the offensive end. You got Deontay Johnson, you got James Conner, you got Juju Smith-Schuster. They got an old quarterback with Ben Roethlisberger coming off an injury. And if Ben's not old Ben, or at least a decent quarterback, they're not going to be this high. But if Ben could be an average quarterback, I think there's a very good football team. This defense with Minkah Fitzpatrick, once he went over there, just changed. Minkah Fitzpatrick just made them a different defense. They've got pass rushers with obviously Watt and Dupree. Watt, to me, is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Could easily win Defensive Player of the Year this year. The Steelers last year forced 38 turnovers. By far the most in the league. They're a really good defense. Mike Tomlin's one of the 5 or 6 best coaches in the sport. Don't count out the Steelers. They've only had 7 losing seasons since the Super Bowl era. I'm not counting out the Steelers. I still think they're a good team. Next up, number 9, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans last year went on an unforeseen run to the AFC title game after going 9-7 behind Coach Mike Vrabel. And they definitely lost a piece there in Conklin. They brought back Tannehill, had like 117 QB rating last year when he was put in a good situation. Go figure. Didn't do much for the Miami Dolphins. Derrick Henry is definitely the guy that they're going to focus that offense around. They're going to ground. They're going to pound. A.J. Brown in the passing game. I think they'll be a solid team. I think that they're going to be an old-school, gritty football team. They're going to win the time of possession, and they're going to let that defense do work. Obviously, the acquisition of Clowney certainly didn't hurt. A lot of people are counting out the Titans. They think they were a fluke last year. I was sort of buying into that, but I'm back on the Titans now. I think they win the South. I got them narrowly beating out the Colts in the South. Next up, number 8, the Buffalo Bills. I was very high on the Bills last year. I had them going to the playoffs before the year started. I'm very high on them again. I think they're one of the 3, 4, 5 most talented teams in the AFC, and they have the type of team that could challenge the Chiefs. I'm not saying they're going to, but if they could somehow get home field advantage, you play in the gritty cold with that defense. The Bills are dangerous. The Bills are a dangerous football team, but it's all going to rest on the shoulder of Josh Allen. He has to mature. A 59-60% completion rating is not going to get it done. He's got to become a better quarterback, 62-63%. And I'm sure the Bills, with Diggs coming aboard, certainly believe that could be the case. Last year, he did only throw 2 picks over his last, I think it was 11 starts. So he definitely got better as the year progressed, even though he did not play well in that playoff game. Allen definitely has accuracy problems, but he's a dynamic quarterback. He's kind of like Cam Newton early in his career. Not that I'm saying he's as good as he was, because Cam Newton was on another level, but he's that type of quarterback. He could use his legs to beat you. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got a good deep threat in Brown, Beasley in the slot, and now you add Diggs. There's enough weapons there to get the job done. Plus, they got a nice running back duo. They spent a lot in free agency the year prior to shore up that offensive line. It was the league's worst in his rookie year. It's gotten better. It's near middle of the pack. I think the Bills, with that defense, the addition of Mario Addison, they're going to carry themselves to an AFC East championship this year. Next up, number 7, Dallas Cowboys. Oh, I hate saying that. But Dallas Cowboys, you could argue, have one of the 4 or 5 most talented teams on paper in football. The question mark there is the new head coach, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, to me, was a coach I was never super interested in as a New York Giant fan. I know he's accomplished. I know he's won a Super Bowl, I should say, and they've got tons of weapons. They had CeeDee Lamb, but to me, they should have added in. I thought they should have improved that secondary. That's still the biggest Achilles heel, and I think had they known they were going to be able to get CeeDee Lamb, who they couldn't pass up. He was a top 10 talent in this year's draft. They wouldn't have signed Amari Cooper. But regardless, they've got more weapons than needed with Cooper still there. You got Gallup, and now you have CeeDee Lamb. They got way too many mouths to feed there. They're going to have a dynamic offense. Dak Prescott has no excuses going into this year. The offensive line, they do lose Travis Frederick, but I still think that O-line will be one of the top 6, 7 units in the league, and that's all you're going to need. They're going to ground it to Zeke. They're going to have big play opportunities. Their Achilles heel, like I said, is the secondary. So I think teams are going to be able to throw on them. We'll see what happens. Next up, number 6, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Bucs, everybody's flavor of the month, and I'm kind of buying into it. Not that I think Tom Brady is going to be that guy. He'll get credit for it because the quarterback always does. I don't think Brady's going to be the huge determining factor. I think they had great weapons to begin with, and all they need is a guy to step in there and do the job. And last year, Jameis Winston threw 30 picks. If Brady could cut that in half, this is a team that's going to win a lot more football games. And I think he will. I think Brady will be smart with the football. Don't expect to see Brady from 10 years ago, but they just need a game manager who could make plays in the big spots, and that's what Brady is. And I think with those weapons, with that offensive mind with Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles on the defensive side, with some of the playmakers that he has, Shaq Barrett being one of them, the Bucs are a dangerous football team, and they could definitely contend in the NFC South. Next up, at number 5, the Seattle Seahawks. And to me, the most valuable player in the league, as far as I'm concerned, is Russell Wilson. He won't win it because Mahomes is going to put up the stats, and Mahomes is unbelievable in terms of talent, not trying to discount Mahomes. But what Russell Wilson did last year, the last couple of years with that Seattle team, a team, in my opinion, is not one of the top 53 teams, one of the top teams in terms of 53-man roster in the sport, but he is so good. He carries that football team. I still have question marks on the Seattle roster, but Russell Wilson is too good. And as long as you have Russell Wilson, you have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. And that's why I got Seattle as high as I do. Next up, New Orleans Saints. Saints, second, maybe third best 53-man roster in football. They got Drew Brees coming back for what a lot of people feel is his last season in the NFL. I think Brees will be fine. They had, I think, the second-ranked offensive line in both run and play. Or, no, that was the Cowboys. But they were near. They've been top 5 in both run and pass blocking over the last 3 years. I think it's the most overlooked unit in football. The Saints' offensive line has allowed Drew Brees to become a more efficient quarterback later in his career. Before that, he was throwing for 5,000, 5,200 yards, and they were losing football games. He's since become a guy that throws for 3,900 yards. They've relied more on the run. They've become a much more balanced attack, and the Saints have progressed because of that. You could say, I think you could definitively say over the last 2 years, if you combine the 2 years, there hasn't been a better team in the league than the New Orleans Saints. They just haven't been able to get over the hump. Saints are going to compete this year. Them and the Bucs will be neck and neck in the South. Next up, number 3, San Francisco 49ers. A lot of people may think they're going to have a Super Bowl hangover, and I get it. That's very common for the team that loses in the Super Bowl. I like the way this team is structured. I really do. I think Shanahan is an unbelievable offensive mind. Jimmy G is good enough. They've got weapons. They're going to improve the ground game. Kittle is unbelievable. One of the best players in the NFL. Deebo Samuel should take a step up. I think Brandon Ayuk was a very good pickup for the Niners. That defense is ferocious with the pass rush. Richard Sherman saw a resurgence last year as a cornerback. Niners are legit. I think the Niners win the West, and I think they could win the Super Bowl this year. Next up, number 2, Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens have Lamar Jackson coming back, and the one thing that I guess that could make them disappoint this year is if Lamar Jackson takes a step back, and he could. I mean, last year, Lamar Jackson was unbelievable. I mean, he was putting up Madden-like numbers. He won the MVP award. He was incredible. They have an offense there that is beautiful. They fit it right around his skill set. They ground and they pound. They run the football more than anybody, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Lamar Jackson's running for over 1,000 yards. But Ingram is a nice running back up the middle. They bring in J.K. Dobbins, another weapon. Marquise Hollywood Brown. They've got weapons on that offense, and the defense is good. Matt Judon, one of the better pass rushers in football. They're just a good defense. They have a good secondary. They're a very good football team. They have the most dynamic quarterback in football. Going in, I got the Ravens at number 2, and at number 1, who'd you think I was going to have? The Kansas City Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, the most deadly head coach and quarterback duo the sport has to offer. This offense, you could be up by 30 in the third quarter, and the game's not over. You saw it last year against the Texans. They were down, I think, 21 points or whatever it was in the first, 15 minutes. They had the lead by halftime. This offense is dynamic. Tyreek Hill, probably the best big play receiver the game has to offer. Travis Kelce, the best tight end. I mean, you're loaded. And with the offensive mind of Andy Reid, now you're bringing a rookie running back that everybody says is the favorite to win Rookie of the Year with Edwards-Helaire. That offense is going to be moving and grooving. Kansas City Chiefs, to me, are the best team in football. And right now, until such time they're knocked off, I'm going to have them there. As always, guys, thank you for watching the premiere. Thank you guys for being the best supporters on YouTube. That's the way I see it right now, 1 to 32. I'll see you guys tonight. If you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.